Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Alright, so BYD are finally for sale where I live, so naturally I had to go and test one out. I mean, in all our community, we often get bombarded by people telling us, BYD will overtake Tesla, BYDs are so much better value, you're just a Tesla fanboy, and all that. And it's easy to ignore and put our heads in the sand and just say, Tesla, Tesla, Tesla. But I like to test every electric car I can to make sure Tesla is still that much further ahead. And bear in mind, my Model 3 is in essence now a 5-year-old vehicle with 5-year-old technology, and it was Tesla's first mass production vehicle, whereas BYD must be on something like their 20th electric car, so they've had more practice, and each new model they release is an opportunity to refine and learn from the last. That's not nothing. BYD have experience in electric cars, and they've been making them for some time now. I should also point out, this is a car review for Tesla investors, not BYD customers. It is based on what I would want to know as a Tesla investor. Anyway, the only vehicle BYD sell where I live is the BYD Atto 3, also known as the One Plus. Now, admittedly, I don't stay up to date with BYD anything close to Tesla, but I do believe this is their latest technology on the E-Platform 3, and it is using their Blade batteries. So in I went to the showroom, and the salesperson greeted me and seemed very excited about the vehicle. It had only been available for about a month, and they'd already sold about 500 in the country, and almost 150 just from this dealership alone, and they're selling them daily. The wait time is to November, so only 2 months to wait. The salesperson goes through all the features with me, and to be honest, it sounded very highly optioned. It comes with a reasonable size screen, but also had a good viewing area. Rather than like the BMW trying to just a long massive strip of screen, this was just a proper sized screen at 12.8 inches, large enough to watch YouTube or something on, if necessary. The Model 3 by comparison is 15 inches. The screen does rotate from landscape to portrait too, something the Tesla doesn't do, although I have absolutely no idea why you need that. It seems like an additional unnecessary cost and complexity, and kind of gimmicky. The car is accompanied with the usual connectivity like Bluetooth, wireless phone charging, USB-C and USB, and later there'll be an update that will even add Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So yeah, it has over-the-air updates. They even managed that. The salesperson said that the apps are coming out soon, and it will have Spotify as well, but probably not the likes of YouTube or Netflix, but perhaps on a future update maybe. The screen was responsive and worked well, although not close to as intuitive as Tesla's UI. It didn't have GPS either, but supposedly that will come in another update as well. You could, however, change all the lighting in the interior to any colour you want, another feature that the Tesla doesn't offer. It did also have a really good camera system. You could see 3D all around you, and it had the bird's eye view too, something Tesla doesn't have that you do get on most other ICE cars these days as well. I wish Tesla did offer that. Perhaps they can eventually with a software update. It also comes standard with all the latest safety features. Well, all that you expect on a typical car at least, like lane departure warning, stop and go full speed adaptive cruise control with automatic emergency braking system, front and rear collision warning, blind spot monitoring and traction control system. Sure, no autopilot or FSD, no LiDAR either, although my Mercedes from 12 years ago had all these as well. The interior was, how do I describe it, trying to be somewhere in between perhaps funky and cute. The stereo speakers stuck out like a feature and even had the door handles attached to them, although they didn't open electric, still manual, and there were guitar string like holders for a drink bottle in the side door. The seats were reasonably comfortable. The salesperson said that they were more comfortable than a Model 3. I think we agreed to disagree on that one. But it did have electric seats, although no memory for them. They were, however, heated, at least the front seats, not the rear too, unlike the Tesla. There was enough room for me in the back, but not a lot, not compared to the Model 3 at least. The trunk was electric, which was nice, but there wasn't a ton of space. And even when it lifted up where the spare tyre should be, there was very little extra, nothing compared to a Tesla. That really does offer a lot of storage. It did, however, have a sunroof, actually a fully panoramic roof that could open, which again is something the Tesla doesn't offer. So yeah, all in all, reasonably highly optioned. There were, however, lots of buttons still, even more than some legacy EVs. BYD don't quite get it yet, or they simply aren't good enough at making the car digital. All of these add to cost and complexity. Look how minimalist the Teslas are. I really would love to know just how little they're producing that Model Y in Shanghai for. It's got to be a highly impressive number. Let's get to the specifications. This was for the 60 kilowatt hour version, however there is a 50 kilowatt hour version coming out later too. The price was New Zealand $58,000, which is just US $35,000. For comparison's sake, the Model Y rear-wheel drive is $76,000, US $46,000, and the Model 3 rear-wheel drive is $75,000 New Zealand dollars, or $45,500 US. That's right, where I live, the Model Y is the same price as the 3. I think Tesla have done something magic, getting the cost of that Y down so low. The Atto was a crossover, so I would say its competition is the Model Y. For comparison, the Model Y was 20 centimeters longer, 5 centimeters wider, and 1 centimeter higher. So the Model Y is a slightly larger vehicle. The Model Y was also 30 kilograms heavier. The cargo space though for the Model Y is over double, and there is no frunk in the BYD. Perhaps the front of the BYD is likely a lot larger, possibly due to the efficiency of Tesla and the way they managed to remove so many parts, hence the extra room. Okay, moving on to the important stuff, battery and performance. Both the Model Y and BYD are using 60 kilowatt hour LFP cells. The Tesla does have slightly faster acceleration, but the BYD wasn't too far off, but there was a huge difference between top speeds. I guess Tesla can just get that much more power out of their batteries. And then the all-important range. Well, Tesla only get 35 kilometers more range. The BYD range is actually not too far off Tesla's. Sure, the Tesla is slightly heavier, quicker, and a lot faster, but still range is the important factor for most consumers' buying decision. This converts to an EPA of 233 miles to 252 miles of range, using a conversion of 1.12 from WLTP to EPA, which I'm not entirely sure is that accurate. I would say both ranges are possibly about 6% lower. At a guess, in reality, you're probably getting under 200 miles of range with the BYD. Alright, so on paper, the BYD is doing pretty well. It comes with a lot of the same options as the Tesla and isn't too far off in performance and range, yet costs quite a bit less to buy. BYD seems to have done quite a good job. Then the important test drive, a lot riding on this. Has what Tesla achieved really that easy to duplicate? Or have they really done something special? The salesperson let me take it out by myself for about an hour. I get told that the Chinese can catch up to Tesla, and given that this is a new model this year, and Teslas are about 5 years old, as the Model Y is just essentially a crossover Model 3, so let's see what 5 years more evolution can add to driving from the second largest BEV company in the world. I should probably let you know that I do consider myself quite the driver. I grew up on a city with a lot of hills and windy roads, and not a whole lot else to do. I've also had a penchant for performance vehicles and pretty much only German made. Yeah, there's a reason I bought the performance Tesla. Therefore, I feel qualified to put this car through the necessary tests. The first thing I do is put my foot down to see what sort of power we're dealing with. And it acts the same as all the other EVs I've driven. Nothing. And I do mean absolutely nothing happens for perhaps a whole second, by which time my foot is firmly to the floor. In the Tesla, I feel it instantly. I think there may be some software or hardware that is delaying the power until they're felt in the wheels. Tesla seemed to deliver the power so much faster. And when the power came in, okay, there was a little there, and I'm used to something much faster. So perhaps I'm not that credible, but we are talking 0 to 60 time in excess of 7 seconds. I've actually never owned an ICE car even that slow, but what blew my mind was at around 30 miles an hour, the wheels would start screeching, as if it lost traction, and the traction control corrected it after the fact, rather than preventing it in the first place. But that wasn't the scariest part. The steering was pulling to the left and the right, and all over the place when I accelerated, and was even shaking the steering wheel. I had to really concentrate on keeping the car straight. This was particularly scary above 80 miles an hour. Yeah, I don't think any German would want this vehicle. It's definitely not suitable for the autobahns, or a lot of Europe given the 130 km/h speed limits they have there. A large part of this might come down to the fact it's front-wheel drive. Perhaps the torque you get from an electric motor is just too much for a front-wheel drive vehicle. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 is rear-wheel drive and drove so much better. So BYD are making front-wheel drive EVs, which I think is a big mistake. I think EVs should be pushed, not pulled. There are advantages with front-wheel drive, such as lower cost to build and a simpler production process, lighter vehicle, better range, but I'm not even sure if that is a big deal if you can have the motor in the rear anyway. Besides, there are plenty of downsides with front-wheel drive too. which is why you will never see a front-wheel drive Ferrari, namely the handling, especially at high speeds, and it's just a more fragile design. Torque steer is a real problem, which is why I think all EVs should be rear-wheel drive, if not all-wheel drive, as they do have so much torque. And the same occurred when I went round corners. The tyres kept screeching. It wasn't like I was trying to drift the car or anything. I wouldn't have dared, as it felt like it would have more likely rolled. And the cornering was actually terrible anyway. Am I exaggerating? Well, judge for yourself. I even filmed it, just in case you wouldn't believe it was that bad. And even if I was trying to drift the car, then any modern car would have adjusted this immediately. Even ICE cars with the traction control. Modern? No, a 20-year-old BMW even. This is not good. In fact, it's exceptionally bad and just dangerous. The brakes were, however, very responsive, which was necessary as I was back to two-pedal driving. The salesman said that the regen braking was on. I didn't notice it at all. I think Tesla have done great things when it comes to their regenerative braking. I did test the brakes well though, and although they were very responsive, when the brakes reduced the speed, it still felt like it took some time for the car to actually stop. It just kept drifting that little bit longer than I expected. This is meant to be a high spec though, so I thought I'd check the stereo. Yeah, that was not great either. I have never owned a car with a stereo that bad, so if you're into music, then this is not the car for you either. Even driving around at 40 miles an hour without the stereo, there was wind noise coming from the car, implying potential build quality issues. I don't get that with the Tesla, although the Tesla is double glazed. I don't know how safe this car is. The handling is certainly dangerous, but how it will be in a collision is something else. I'm not sure if a lot of Tesla's safety is due to it being electric or simply because it's a Tesla. However, the BYD cells won't catch fire and do have the safest cells on the market currently. I must say, it did have a good turning circle, better than the Tesla. Now, am I being a total Tesla fanboy or even a BYD hater or Chinese EV hater? Well, I do try and drive all the EVs I can, as limited as I am where I live. I guess the Polestar might be a good comparison. I drove the Polestar 2, which was admittedly at a higher price point than the BYD, similar to the Model Y, and Polestar do know how to make a car. Sure, it lacked the responsiveness of a Tesla and all the other features, but it was a real car, that I didn't feel it was dangerous at least. It felt more solid. The Hyundai Ioniq was similar to the Polestar 2. Remember, I'm outlining what is important to know as a Tesla investor, not a BYD investor. If it was a BYD investment channel, then I would likely talk about how BYD have possibly found a segment in the market. But as for Tesla investors, we know that BYD can't make high quality cars, nothing remotely close to a Tesla, and they don't look like they're catching up anytime soon. The BYD is a budget car for people who want an EV who are on a budget. It does cost reasonably less. Some people don't care about driving or cars much at all and want something to go from A to B. And admittedly, I care much more than the average, hence where I buy driver's cars. But this was a review from an avid car and driver enthusiast, and that's the only angle I can take, but I put it through a proper quality test. Admittedly, I don't have a ton of experience driving budget cars. I rented a Toyota Camry once in the UK because they had no European cars, but that drove a lot better than this still. And remember, Tesla offers immense value, especially when you compare it to more similar cars like the Polestar and all those Tesla features. But personally, I think this car should not be for sale legally in developed nations. It's that bad. Just don't recommend it to any of your loved ones. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.